Welcome to Journey to Joy Live. I'm Dr. Enjoy, and I am the owner of Enjoy Life, living in full empowerment. And I have a special guest here today. That is Jessica Taylor, my BFF. And I want you to introduce yourself and tell us about your wonderful business.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jessica Taylor. I am a licensed clinical social worker, licensed in the state of Maryland, DC, originally from Detroit. Got to represent. My company is called Therapy for Black Women LLC, and we are a growing group practice, and we specialize clearly in providing services for amazing Black women and teens sometimes in the Maryland and DC area, all virtual and all wonderful.
Yay. Thank you for being here today. This is like the fourth week doing this. July is Minority Mental Health Awareness Month, and I'm just out here spreading awareness about mental health in the African American Black community. We got to break down this stigma of mental illness. Why aren't we talking about it? Why do we feel like we can't go and seek out a mental health professional? What is it all about? Some people are scared to go. What happens when I go and talk to somebody? So week after week, I may be a little redundant when I talk about these things, but that's because it's important and the fear is out there. The stigma is out there. Really, I just want to start with saying how we met. We've been friends for ages. I met Jessica in 10th grade in high school. We were both trying out for the flag team in the marching band. You remember that?
Yeah, but I'm doing the math on how long I've known you.
Oh, you're trying to think of the math. Well, it's definitely more than 20 years because we've definitely went to our 20-year class reunion already. So 22 years, 23 years, because the 20th was last year. Long time.
Before we graduated. Anyway.
Well, that's what I mean. Anyhow, that's how we met. But we got closer in college. We both went to the University of Michigan. So we were hanging out together. So anyway, tell me about your journey to the mental health field. You're a social worker, you do therapy. What made you get into therapy?
Interesting question. Okay, so briefly, because this is not all about my journey, but I've always been like a helper, a volunteer when I was young, and I had the mind to do a social work or some sort of social services program out of college. I ended up doing a year of City Year, which is kind of an AmeriCorps program where you serve your city. And then I started at Wayne State University in the School of Social Work. My father, who is a wonderful person, is also a social worker who attended Wayne State University School of Social Work. So when it was time to pick, that's what I went with. First job out of the grad program was working with adoption, crisis pregnancy, helping people figure that out. And I was told here and there, hey, you might be a good counselor. It happened a few times, and then I was proposed to move to the counseling department. And so that was the beginning of that. 2018, I started working like individual, what you typically think of adult counseling.
Gotcha. And you're really natural at it. So it's so nice that you entered into the field.
Thank you. It's going well.
Now, when we talk about stigma, I mean, do you feel like at any point you ever felt a stigma, whether it was, why am I entering into this field? There's such a stigma against me, or have you, if you've ever had to seek your own help or a family member, have you ever felt that yourself?
I raised in a Black household with Black mamas and grandmamas and uncles and aunties. So I heard all of the dismissive stuff, the like secretive stuff, oh, something's off or something wrong, or she's special, or she touched, or he this and that. But no one really acknowledging that care, reading about it or attending some sort of therapy was cool or normal or fine. Right. It was kind of that energy. I felt that way by default, but then going into college and being like a social services type of focus, it was quickly unlearned. And then I have been in therapy myself, and just recently ended with my last therapist. She was like, "We're good." I was like, "Okay,"
but graduated from therapy.
Yeah, apparently. But she was walking me through another journey, and I guess that's to the point of like the stigma. There was something that I needed at this point in life. There was something that I needed at this point in life. And then there was, there's different things that I have needed. And the psychoeducation that comes from therapy and just having someone who knows what they're talking about and can walk through it has been super helpful, period. But also, of course, as a clinician to be able to relate,
Right. And I like how you said through cycles of life, because that's the thing about therapy. I mean, you can enter for one thing, but then something else comes up and you continue it for that. Or you just have maintenance therapy. Everything's going well, but you see them every so often. You may space it out or you may continue. Or like with you may terminate it. I don't really like that word. So I use the word graduating from therapy, but that's the official term. But I think for me, my family, if it was a stigma, it was hidden by the fact that my family didn't actually seek the help. I mean, mental illness was in my family, drug addiction was in my family, but I never saw anyone seek help for it. So that naturally is considered a stigma. But, I honestly think watching The Beautiful Mind was my first entry into like, ooh, psychiatry, this is nice. And it's just like the psychological thrillers. I'm into those movies and things like that. And then I majored in psychology and hit it off from there. So just really excited about the mind and Black people. So I think we have similar journeys. But so with that said, with your personal journey, how does that kind of cater towards your approach in therapy and with your patients?
Currently, so in the middle of the pandemic, I shifted to see, I don't want to say only, but mostly Black women.
Yeah.
As one of my self-care tactics in the middle of that, just for context, I was also a brand new mom to a little toddler. A little newborn in the pandemic, working. Blah, 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 blah. I could go on and on and on. But like for context, your girl had to take care of herself. And it took a lot of thought to decide, but that was one, to just be a little bit more niche, be a little bit more specific. And of course, 2020 was 2020. The whole country, the whole world was like realizing how not enough has changed as it relates to how Black people live in this country and in the world, period. That was one of the things I did. My clients are mostly wonderful Black women, but not all. I have cool queer folks. I have cool non-binary folks. I have cool people that are not Black. But I pride myself on being a really safe space, a really well-informed space. And if not, I am very transparent about that because there's new things that we're learning. But just being like this consistent, safe space has been really, they say like in therapy, the relationship between the therapist and the client is like this huge part of the success of that person's treatment. So that's a big chunk of it, honestly. But then understanding what mamas and grandmamas say and validating people's experiences, talking about psychoeducation and things that are a little bit like a little nerdy, a little like, why would I know that? But kind of normalizing things. So yeah, I don't know. And then representation matters also, sometimes I am transparent about my own mental health journey or triumph. And I think that matters as well in a therapeutic relationship. So I don't know if I fully answered that question, but.
Oh, yes, you did completely. I was gonna say, so like what we go through ourselves, is so important, and we're not robots, right? We're human. We have our own journey, our own mental illness or struggle with mental wellness. So I think that actually helps us be better providers. I know what depressive symptoms feel like. I've been diagnosed with ADHD. I'm a parent of 3 boys, so I know what it's like to struggle with raising toddlers and babies and a toddler and a baby together. But anyhow, what I tell my patients a lot is, hey, I'm a mother. I have boys. I know what it's like. And I see my child in you. And, I can see, glisten over their eyes. We're just like, oh, she gets me. She understands. And just to know if I have to prescribe a medication, I'm not just throwing it at them. I tell them, let's do therapy first. Let's try that. But obviously, if I have to recommend a medication for whatever reason, I'm telling them, look, I see my child when I see yours. So I'm not just pill popping. So, hopefully they understand that. But yeah, it just depends, whether we disclose what we disclose or when we disclose it. So yeah, that's important. Yeah. So what are some mental health challenges that you feel like Black people struggle with?
Okay, well,
We're talking about Black people here.
yeah, the same as everybody else. That's the first answer. Plus, for the majority of people, you just have to live while Black. People know the old school driving while Black and how that was a whole risky endeavor
Mhm.
and it had real consequences for a lot of people. Now we are realizing with the research and wonderful people's books and testimonies and discussions that just existing while Black, navigating the health system, navigating the education system, navigating the financial system, navigating real estate systems, like you know what I mean, just trying to live your life while being a Black person comes with these extra little, oh, let me throw that in your way. Oh, now overcome this obstacle. Oh, now take this on and act like everything is still fine all day long. So I mean, of course, there is microaggressions and outright racial mess. I was about to say BS. I can say anyway, like family struggles that are a little bit more specific because maybe it's a combo of financial stuff and mental health stuff and like dynamics that are specific to not just African American Black, but the diaspora of Black folks. And it's even different when it's like, oh, my family's from the Caribbean, oh, my family's from Africa. Then
Oh
it's
my goodness, right.
it's a whole nother thing. So
Layer.
yeah, it's the same, but it's like our families are still overall trying to catch up, to release the stigma, to accept that things are things, like that ADHD is a thing. That, oh girl, you're fine. What are you talking about? Meanwhile, my mama need to be one in for therapy, her darn self, So I don't have as much data as I do for other communities because, of course, I'm working in this community majority. But yeah, that's it's all the same, but it's like additional layers.
It's additional layers.
To overcome a lot on top of it. Yeah.
Right. And going back to your disclaimer, because that's important. Like I said last week, I mean, mental health goes across all genders, all races, all ages, all what else? Classes, whatever we can think of, right? So, and as I'm going through this entering social media land, I never thought I would be, but it's fun. I do a lot of research trying to like look through YouTube videos and comments and Facebook groups, and I'm finding mental health support groups, and I'm finding what people are saying, right? So there's people who are non-Black, non-African American that might say, well, wait a minute, white people matter, all people matter. It's not just Black people. I can't remember the comments, by heart, but the comments are there. We're not leaving you out. But what do you say to that, right? Because we care about everybody. And I definitely see patients that aren't Black. But what do you say to that?
I mean, it's this book that I had to read in undergrad. Why are all the Black kids sitting at the table together? It's kind of like not just the one subject that we're talking about. It's why do Black people need safe spaces? Well, if we said it was just a space for white people, y'all would be crazy. But okay, let's back it up and try to understand, why do different communities, not just Black people, but like, why do they need safe spaces? You have to take like the totality of being a Black person in this country into context and believe Black people when they tell you their experiences, not minimize them, not, oh, she didn't mean that. Oh, he was just being, what I experienced was real. And showing up, I'm going to use the example of a workplace. Showing up to this workplace every day is not the same existence for me that it is for you if I'm, talking to some non-Black person. So specifically bringing it back to my clients, there is like another level of activation if I know I'm not going into a safe space, or if I know I'm going into a space where I do see the differences in how I'm being treated, or I do see how my work is being double, triple checked, even though
Mhm.
I have the credentials and I have proven to this organization or to this team over and over and over. Not saying that this is happening to everybody everywhere, but
Right.
these little things are real. And so the the need for safe spaces, the need for
And that safe space is being around Black people, if I might clarify. Is that what you're saying?
it's not just being around Black people, but it's being able to discuss like what is happening to us.
To have someone who
We're not
understands.
saying that nothing is happening to people all over the world. Nothing is happening to the queer community. We're not saying that, the differently able community doesn't deserve rights and marches as well.
Hmm.
Also, okay for us to like specifically put some time and energy into discussing what is happening to Black people,
Right.
whether police community, whether it's education, whatever. People sort of see the energy and activity around a Black Lives Matter or whatever as a threat. Like, well, if you're doing this, you're taking away time and energy and funds, or I don't know, away from us. It feels threatening when some outside other community is doing the stuff. But it's not a dismissal
Yeah.
or a rejection that other things aren't important. It's like this is important right
Right.
now.
I think it boils down to the support that you need and feeling understood. And a lot of people feel understood by someone who has gone through the same struggles culturally or by, someone who looks like them. Obviously, there's the other way around. We're both from Detroit. We had white people in our high school who definitely know our struggle, right? And the other way around, Black people who grow up somewhere else around white people who know our they go through. But I look for a Black doctor when I'm looking for a doctor. I have my patients when they see me when I pop on my virtual screen and they see I'm a Black person. Ooh, Black doctor, they get excited. They're looking for a Black doctor. People are looking for Black therapists. The other way around, I can't remember if I said this on my platform or another person's platform, but the other way around, I have a doctor in training that I supervise. He's a white male and a white family that he had saw. He said, he felt kind of shy about it. And he says, well, you know what? This mom, she prefers a white doctor. And he felt kind of ashamed to have to tell me that that's how she felt. I told him, you know what? That's okay. That is okay if that's what you want. And now remembering one of the comments I saw on YouTube. So they were talking about, oh, this is Minority Mental Health Month. Oh, Black Child Mental Health Awareness Day. There's always something
Yeah.
Black this, minority this. And someone said, oh, here I thought it was White Mental Health Awareness Month. And that is okay too, to want that. And you can promote that, and that's okay. But given, the struggles that we've gone through, that's why we kind of rally all of our support because we care. I saw your face. What's your response to that?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I would be repeating what too many people have already repeated that every day it is white mental. Like literally, if you look into the research into what has been published over the decades, people of color, even women, if you want to really we have not been included in the research as much. We have not been included in, and so we are just in some instances making up for our mistakes of the past, meaning like America's mistakes of the past, but also there is a lot of things that are different for minority mental health, for Black mental health, for Black children. Things are also changing. We just need to have spaces and platforms to talk about it and keep the awareness up.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Sometimes you see, oh my gosh, there's a group of people from Detroit meeting on Tuesday. Well, I'm gonna go. If it said a women's group, I'll be like, it's just
Yeah.
being
Yeah. It makes a difference.
reflected in the conversation. It just draws you a little bit sometimes.
It does. It definitely makes a difference. And I think that's okay either way, right? When it comes to racial trauma, I mean, what have you seen in practice? I see a lot of trauma in general, trauma. And I do address whatever trauma it is I was going to say the same way, but it really depends because it's case by case. It depends on what they go through. At the end of the day, therapy is obviously really important. We have trauma focused CBT, trauma focused cognitive behavioral therapy, which is like the gold standard for treating post traumatic stress disorder or trauma. But when it comes to racial trauma, there's that extra layer. Is there anything different you might do in your therapy?
I am not a TFCBT like certified practitioner, but um, in my practice, I'm seeing a lot of family racial trauma, honestly, with people who are biracial or whatever.
Mm,
So a lot of the jacked up racial experiences are coming from inside the family,
mm,
grandma,
mm.
but not only black and white biracial. There's all different types of things. So yeah, the way I'm judged, the way I'm talked to, the way I was treated differently, kids be paying attention. You know what I'm saying? And so even now, kids are always paying attention and they know
Mhm.
how to make them feel and they know how you treat them differently than the other cousins or the other grandchildren
Yeah.
or whatever. So that is a lot of things that we're unpacking when we're, going back to like core pain points and things like that. And we're trying to move forward. Rarely have I had any overt violent type of traumatic
Yeah.
thing. But of course, even when you have a violent thing happen to your cousin, your brother, your where we are, why were we there, it's sometimes a factor. But yeah, a lot of it, honestly, is that stuff at work where you work and live with people who do these little things, like
The microaggressions, right?
being the only woman of color, being the only queer woman of color, being the only black woman. It was again because my practice is full of women mostly. I am. We'll talk about something that's happening, and I'll say, "Ooh, yes, this is what," they'll kind of be like,
Validate them.
"Well, I don't know." Yeah, yeah. And it's like, this is not the first time you've explained it to me. This is not the first conversation I've even had this week. This person said that, and they're just validated and reflected. It is not you and your mind. It is not the excuses of like,
Mhm.
oh, they just wanted to double check. That's not cool. Just
So
kind of calling it out and validating it is step one, and somebody putting up
gotcha.
a better boundary, somebody
Gotcha.
depersonalizing that behavior, like it's not me, this is messed up, maybe even calling it out, getting HR involved, whatever. But
Gotcha.
just not personalizing it and then taking that energy and that dread. And like I said, that activation, like whenever I go into this place, I'm hyper vigilant. I'm anxious to the max,
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
I just allow it to bleed over into my personal life. And so yeah.
Right. So setting those boundaries against that person or whoever it's happened, but also within yourself so that you're not bringing it in your personal life. So you actually answered my next question because I was going to ask, well, what do we tell people? Like, they just quit their job because they're dealing with it? You mentioned HR. You mentioned not taking it personally. You mentioned calling it out.
Accountability. Yeah, accountability. It's always tricky because it's like the burden of educating whatever community we're discussing, it always seems to fall on the person who really needs to be advocated for. But it's
Yeah.
like no one else, everyone else has the privilege to not be thinking about this. So it's on me to be bringing it up. So
Thinking about it.
sometimes it does start with a team meeting, bringing in someone, HR. But yeah, documenting, covering your butt and like documenting the instances of things happening. And then, yeah, we're just working on the unlearning and the depersonalizing. And I don't have to do 6 times the work to impress this person because they still think I don't
Yeah.
know what I'm doing.
Knowing those things, knowing your worth.
Yeah. And sometimes it is goodbye, you know.
Sometimes you have to. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really hard, and it's that strong of a discrimination, and they don't understand, and they're not changing. HR is not advocating for you. That's the case. When it comes to self care, advocating for yourself to get your wellness, because as a Black female, you see a lot of Black females. You said, we are always doing stuff for everybody else in work, in our families, our communities, wherever. So how can we promote our own self-care and actually do it and say no and not look selfish?
Nedra Tawwab, who's an author, has a wonderful book called Set Boundaries, Find Peace. And I am referring to that book all of the time because we're socialized as women first to be like, we have to do this and we have to do that. We have to do the household management and we have to do I don't know. We just have to do the most, right? Mm-hmm. And so that book and then just talking it through, period, is kind of unlearning. I do not have to kill myself. I do not have to sacrifice myself. It is okay to have these boundaries. I am actually a better blank to whomever else when I pour into my own cup first. And it feels funky at first. It feels guilty. It feels lazy. It feels wrong to a lot of people.
So guilty.
Yes, who are trying to unlearn do too muchness. Okay, so just like a practice.
There's the mom guilt, there's the wife guilt, all kind of guilt. But yeah, it's a practice of getting into it. So before we end, where can people find you? Where are you at?
Oh,
what's platforms? Yeah, Facebook, website. Can we walk into your practice?
So it's 100% virtual, but you can Therapy for Black Women, and women is spelled WOMXN to be inclusive of whatever you want to identify as long as you feel like you are a woman, whatever. .com, did I say that? Therapyforblackwomen.com with an X in there. And we're on Facebook and Instagram as Therapy for Black Women LLC. Yeah, that's how you can find me.
Awesome. Thank you. Hopefully people will come join you because my license is in Georgia. I see people in Georgia. You're over there in the DMV area. Do you have a license in all the Aero area?
I have a license in DC and Maryland.
Gotcha. Awesome. Sounds great. You can find me, DrEnjoyLife.com. Of course, I'm on Facebook under Enjoy Life, as well as YouTube at Dr. Enjoy Life MD. All right, we got this. We did it. Thank you, BFF, for joining me to Journey to Joy Live.